You ever notice how people love to hate on someone who blew up out of nowhere? Like one day, nobody knows who they are, the next day they're everywhere, and suddenly the internet's full of conspiracy theories. Industry plants bought their way in, fake fans. But here's the thing, overnight success is almost never what it looks like. Today we're breaking down the 7 levels of overnight success in music, from actual lightning strikes to decade-long master plans that just looked instant. Because the truth is, how fast someone blows up says almost nothing about how they got there. Some people really do wake up famous by accident. Others grinded in silence for 10 years before you ever heard their name. And the internet, it can't tell the difference. So let's fix that. Level 1. The lightning strike. This is the purest, most chaotic form of viral explosion that exists. No build-up, no rollout strategy, no carefully timed social media posts. Just a video, a song, or a singular moment that catches fire for reasons that genuinely nobody can explain. Not even the person it happened to. Ice JJ Fish, Island Boys, Silento, Lil Nas X in the eyes of most casual fans, Rebecca Black. These aren't calculated, these are accidents. Beautiful, chaotic, completely unrepeatable accidents. Ice JJ Fish uploaded singing videos to YouTube that were so unintentionally hilarious, so earnestly off-key, that they became instant memes. He wasn't trying to be funny. He genuinely thought he was making serious R&B music. You can't fake that kind of accidental comedy, and that sincerity is exactly what made it go nuclear. Island Boys went viral on TikTok because their look and their sound were so absolutely absurd that people couldn't look away. The hair, the teeth, the melodies that barely qualified as melodies. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, except the car was also singing. Within 48 hours, they went from complete unknowns to people everyone had an opinion about. Rebecca Black dropped Friday and became the internet's main character for an entire month. The song was so aggressively, almost impressively bad that it became the most disliked video on YouTube at the time. She didn't choose that fame. She was 13 years old. Her parents paid for a vanity music video. The internet did the rest. And Silento, Watch Me Whip, turned a simple dance move into a global phenomenon before anyone even knew his name. He was just the voice behind the instructions, and that was enough. Now here's the thing about level 1 that people don't talk about enough. This kind of virality is not repeatable. You cannot study it and recreate the formula. Because there is no formula, it's chaos theory in action. And most of the time, it burns out just as fast as it started. Because when you blow up for being a meme, staying relevant means staying a meme. And that's a really, really hard game to win. Some people manage to pivot out of it. Lil Nas X is the rare example of someone who started as a meme and became a quote-unquote actual artist.
Play the #1 song in the world.
Okay, let's hear Old Town Road.
But most level 1 lightning strikes, they're just that. One strike, one flash, and then darkness. Level 2, the one-hit wonder. This level is different from level 1 because these artists actually had a song. Not a meme, not a joke, a legitimate track that people genuinely enjoyed. But here's the problem. That one track became so massive, so inescapable, that it completely overshadowed everything else they ever did or ever will do. Designer, I Love McConan, Bahamen, Saint Jayan, Fetty Wap in the casual listener's mind. These artists had a moment so big it became their entire public identity, and they've been trying to escape it ever since. Let's start with Designer. Panda was everywhere in 2016. Kanye put it on The Life of Pablo. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The ad-libs became iconic. For about 6 months, Designer was the hottest new rapper in the game, and then nothing. He dropped a bunch of music after that. Some of it was actually decent, but nobody cared, because in the public's mind, Designer is just the Panda guy. That's it. That's the whole story. I Love McConan had Tuesday. That song, especially the Drake remix, was everywhere in 2014. It was moody, it was catchy, it had that late-night vibe that made it feel like the soundtrack to every college party that year.
You know my gas stink. My PO think I'm in
Tuesday. That's it. He became another artist trapped by his biggest moment, forever known as the Tuesday guy. Do you know who the Bahamen are? I bet you don't, but you definitely know the song Who Let the Dogs Out. That song is older than half the people watching this video right now. And to this day, somewhere in America, there's a pep rally going on and they're blasting Who Let the Dogs Out through the speakers. The Bahamen have released other music, they've toured, they're still a group, but none of that matters because they're frozen in time as the Who Let the Dogs Out guys, forever. Saint JHN is an interesting case because he actually has a deep catalog. He'd been grinding for years, writing for other artists, releasing projects that got critical respect. But then Roses blew up, specifically the Amanbek remix. That track went global, and now, to most casual listeners, he's just the Roses guy. Even though he's got so much more to offer, and Fetty Wap. Man, let's talk about Fetty Wap for a second. In 2015, this man was unstoppable. Trap Queen, 679, My Way, Again. He had 4 songs in the top 10 at the same time. He was everywhere. He had a signature sound, the melodies, the flow, the eye, the whole aesthetic. But if you ask a casual fan today what they remember about Fetty Wap, most of them will just say Trap Queen and nothing else. They'll act like he had one song and disappeared, even though he dominated an entire year. The problem with Level 2 is that the hit becomes a prison. You can drop 10 albums, tour the world, evolve your sound, try new things. None of it matters because people will only ever ask you to perform that one track over and over and over again. And if you don't perform it, they're disappointed. They feel cheated. That's the curse of the one-hit wonder. You got the success, but it came with handcuffs. If you've made it this far, you've already done more work than most one-hit wonders did to stay relevant. So you might as well subscribe. Takes 2 seconds, and unlike these one-hit wonders, I'm actually here to stay. I'll be posting videos breaking down music culture every single week. So if you're into this kind of thing, you're in the right place. Level 3, the sleeper sensation. This is where the overnight success myth really starts to crack wide open. These artists were grinding for years in complete obscurity, putting in real work that almost nobody was paying attention to. And then one song, one moment, one project breaks through, and suddenly everyone thinks they just appeared out of thin air. Central C, Russ, Post Malone, Pink Pantheress, Doja Cat, SZA, public only sees the explosion. They don't see the years of work that led up to it. Let's start with Central C because his story is a perfect example of this. He was putting in serious work in the UK drill scene for years before Doja went global in 2022.
I be homophobic, my bitch is gay. Hitman in a top try, see a man top.
He had local buzz, he had a fan base in London, he was dropping freestyles, building his sound, perfecting his craft. He even dropped a mixtape in 2017 called 17. It was pretty trash, but that's even more fuel to the argument. To the rest of the world, especially in America, he didn't exist until Doja hit. And when it did hit, people acted like he came out of nowhere, like he just materialized with a viral song. No, he'd been there the whole time. You just weren't paying attention.
I'm up so late it becomes early and that I'm about to break them off. I told them they can't hurt me and that I'm wavy.
Russ might be the most extreme version of this on the entire list. This man was dropping a song and a music video every single week for literal years. Nobody cared. He was grinding independently, building his fan base one person at a time, getting clowned on by the industry. Then What They Want blew up, and suddenly everyone wanted to act like he was an overnight success.
I've been at this shit for 9 years now.
He wasn't. He was the definition of a sleeper. He just refused to quit until someone finally noticed. Post Malone is another one people get completely wrong. Before White Iverson made him a star, he was making music in his bedroom in Texas for years. He was experimenting with sounds, blending genres, figuring out what worked. White Iverson didn't come from nowhere. It came from hundreds of hours of trial and error that nobody saw. But when it hit SoundCloud and started racking up millions of plays, the narrative became random kid goes viral. That's not what happened. He was ready when the moment came. That's the difference. Pink Pantheress had been uploading lo-fi bedroom pop to SoundCloud and TikTok for a while before the algorithm caught on. She was making music for herself, building a small fan base, refining her nostalgic, breakbeat-driven sound. Then TikTok discovered her. And once TikTok discovers you, it's over. You're everywhere. But she didn't just appear. She'd been building in the shadows, waiting for her moment.
I won't have to hold my breath till you get down on one knee.
Doja Cat might be the wildest example of a sleeper sensation on this list. She was making quirky, weird internet music all the way back in 2014. That's almost a full decade before she became a superstar. Moo went viral in 2018 as a meme song. People thought it was funny. They didn't take her seriously, but she kept going, kept refining, kept experimenting. And then Say So dropped in 2020, and suddenly she was unavoidable. Number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, Grammy nominations, the whole package. But it wasn't overnight. It was 6 years of grinding before the world decided to care. And SZA. Man, SZA's story is one of the most overlooked in modern R&B. She was releasing projects and collaborating with artists for years before Control made her a household name in 2017. She was signed to TDE. She was working with Kendrick. She had industry cosigns, but the general public didn't know who she was until The Weeknd and Love Galore started dominating. And even then, people acted like she came out of nowhere. She didn't. She'd been there the whole time, building, growing, waiting. The thing about Level 3 is that these artists all have something in common: patience and persistence. They didn't give up when nobody was watching. They kept working, kept improving, and when the moment finally came, they were ready to capitalize on it. The public only sees the spark. They don't see the years of kindling that had to be stacked first. That's why they call it overnight, because they weren't there for the setup, only the punchline. Level 4, the slow burner. This is different from level 3 because these artists were never really invisible. They had momentum. They had buzz. People knew who they were. But then, one specific moment, one project, one song pushed them into a completely different stratosphere. Lil Yachty, Tizo Touchdown, Kodak Black, 21 Savage. These aren't artists who came out of nowhere. They're artists who were simmering for a while before they finally boiled over. Now, a lot of people thought Lil Yachty would be a one-hit wonder when he was buzzing in 2016 with One Night and the whole SoundCloud rap wave, but he kept that momentum up for basically a decade and built a fan base. He had a distinct sound. He was part of the conversation. But it wasn't until he started experimenting more, dropping songs like Poland and Coffin, and embracing his weird creative side that he hit a new level. At this point in his career now, it is no doubt that he is a staple artist in today's music industry. He went from SoundCloud rapper with a boat to experimental artist who can do whatever he wants. That's not overnight. That's evolution. That's a slow burn paying off. Tizo Touchdown is a more recent example of the slow burn in action. He was the internet's favorite weird guy for a while. The crazy hair, the experimental sound, the artistic visuals. He had a cult following and has actually been making music for a very long while, but he wasn't mainstream yet. Then Tyler, the creator, co-signed him, put him on tour, featured him on Chromacopia, and suddenly Tizo went from underground art project to the next big thing. That cosign was the match that lit the fuse. But the fuse had been there for years. Kodak Black had heat in Florida. Locally, he was a star. Tunnel Vision took him national. It was his breakout. It proved he could make hits. But what kept him in the conversation wasn't just one song. It was consistency, controversy, and a refusal to disappear. He's been hot for almost a decade now. That's not overnight, that's stamina. 21 Savage is maybe the best example of a slow burn on this entire list. He had street buzz with the first Savage Mode project in 2016. Metro Boomin produced it. It was hard, it was Atlanta. But Bank Account in 2017? That's when he broke through to the mainstream. And since then, he's just kept building. More albums, more hits, more respect. He went from local threat to global superstar, but it didn't happen all at once. It happened in stages, layer by layer. That's the slow burn. Level 4 artists were already in the light. They just weren't in the spotlight yet. And when that spotlight finally hit them, it wasn't a surprise. It was inevitable, because they'd been building toward it the whole time. Level 5, the industry plant, or at least that's what people call them. These are the artists whose rise looked too clean, too polished, too suspiciously perfect. And the internet, being the internet, decided that means they were manufactured. Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, Yeat, Iggy Azalea, Chance the Rapper. These artists have all been called industry plants at one point or another, whether it's fair or not. But here's the thing, perception is reality on the internet. Let's start with Billie Eilish because her case is probably the most talked about. She had a team behind her from day one. That's just a fact. Her brother Phineas produced all her early music. They had access to professional equipment. They had industry connections through their parents. When Ocean Eyes blew up, it wasn't some random SoundCloud upload that got lucky. It was a well-crafted song, recorded in a home studio, uploaded strategically, and pushed through the right channels. Does that make her an industry plant? Who knows? More than anything, it makes her someone who had resources and used them well. But to a lot of people, especially people who were grinding with nothing, that looked like cheating. The fact that she blew up so young, so fast, with such a polished sound made people suspicious. And once that suspicion takes root, every success after that just confirms the conspiracy in people's minds. Olivia Rodrigo's situation is even more complicated. She was already famous. She was on Disney Channel. She had a platform. She had name recognition. So when Driver's License dropped and immediately became the biggest song in the world, people said it was rigged. Of course it went #1. Disney pushed it. The label pushed it. It was all set up. Maybe there was some industry support. That's how the music business works. But that doesn't mean the song wasn't good. That doesn't mean people didn't genuinely connect with it. Yeat is one of the weirder cases because nobody can quite figure out his origin story. He seemingly came out of nowhere in 2021 with a fully formed sound, a mysterious persona, and instant buzz. The bells, the rage beats, the slurred delivery, the aesthetic, it all felt too complete, too polished. And when people can't figure out how something happened, they assume it was manufactured. He's got to be a plant. There's no way he just appeared like this. Someone's funding this. Maybe he had some behind-the-scenes support, or maybe he just understood internet culture better than most people. Either way, the industry plant accusations followed him from day one, and they still haven't really gone away. Iggy Azalea might be the most clear-cut case of someone having major label machinery behind them from the start. She had T.I. as a mentor. She was signed to Grand Hustle and Interscope. She had big budgets, big marketing pushes. When Fancy hit #1, it wasn't a surprise. The infrastructure was already there, but that also made her an easy target. Because when you have that much support and still face criticism, people assume you didn't earn it. The authenticity debates around her didn't help. The accent, the persona, the questions about ghostwriting, all of that fed into the narrative that she was a product, not an artist. And Chance the Rapper is maybe the most ironic inclusion on this list because his whole brand was being independent. I don't need a label, I'm doing this on my own. I'm proof that you can make it without selling out. But here's the thing, Chance had resources. He had connections. His dad worked in politics in Chicago. He had access. When acid rap blew up, it wasn't just organic. There was strategy behind it. There were teams involved. He played the independent card perfectly. But the infrastructure around him wasn't exactly DIY. Does that make him a plant? Again, not really, but it complicates the narrative. The truth about Level 5 is that most of these artists had some kind of advantage. But having an advantage doesn't mean you didn't work. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It just means the playing field wasn't level. And people hate that, because if someone succeeds and they had help, it makes everyone else feel like they never had a chance. So they call them plants and discredit the success because that's easier than admitting that sometimes advantages matter and life isn't fair. Level 6, the algorithm golden child. This is when the platform itself becomes your biggest supporter. TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, doesn't matter which one. The algorithm decides you're next. And once that happens, success isn't just likely, it's practically guaranteed. Ice Spice, Lil Tecca, Lil Tyler, Corpse Husband, Joke. These artists didn't game the system picked them. And once you're the algorithm's favorite, the numbers follow automatically. Ice Spice is the most obvious recent example of this phenomenon. She had the Bronx drill sound. She had the look, if you know what I mean. She had the timing. Munch dropped and TikTok immediately ran with it. The song became a sound, the sound became a trend. Then Spotify's editorial playlists picked it up. Rap Caviar, Feeling Myself, all the major placements. Suddenly she's getting millions of streams without even trying. Then the collaborations started. Pink Pantheress, Nicki Minaj, Taylor Swift. Within a year, she went from unknown to unavoidable. Was it talent? Partly. Was it timing? Absolutely. Was it the algorithm? 100%. Because without TikTok and Spotify pushing her, none of that happens as fast as it did. Lil Tecca and Ransom is a textbook case of YouTube's algorithm creating a star. That song was uploaded and almost immediately YouTube started recommending it to everyone. It showed up in autoplay, it showed up in suggested videos. It was inescapable. Within weeks, it had tens of millions of views. And Lil Tecca went from nobody to the Ransom Kid. That was the algorithm just putting together that for some reason, whenever somebody sees this kid's face, they click on it. So it decided this song deserves to be everywhere. And once YouTube decides that, there's no stopping it. Please Me Next. Lou Tyler's Law and Order became a TikTok sound before it ever became a song in people's minds. The beat, the flow, the short, loopable structure, it was built for 15-second clips, and TikTok ate it up. Millions of videos, dance trends, memes. By the time people actually listened to the full song, they'd already heard it 100 times in the background of their feed. That's algorithm-driven success. The platform made it impossible to avoid. Corpse Husband is maybe the weirdest example on this list because he didn't even show his face. He was a faceless voice on YouTube and TikTok. Deep voice. Among Us gameplay, horror narration. But YouTube and TikTok turned that mystery into a phenomenon. His music started getting pushed. E-Girls Are Ruining My Life went viral, not because of traditional promotion, because the algorithm blessed it. Suddenly, he had millions of fans who had never seen him, but were obsessed anyway. Joke built his entire career on algorithm-friendly content. Piano-driven pop hooks, short, emotional clips, perfect for Instagram Reels and TikTok. Golden Hour lived on those platforms for months. It was everywhere. And once a song becomes that embedded in the short-form video ecosystem, it's basically guaranteed to chart. The thing about Level 6 that makes people uncomfortable is that the artist's talent becomes almost secondary. What matters more is, are they memeable? Do they loop well? Does the sound fit the current trending format? If the answer is yes, the platform does the heavy lifting, and the artist gets called an overnight success, even though they were really just in the right place when the algorithm decided to care. The algorithm is the new A and R, and if it picks you, you win. Level 7, the mastermind. This is the 10-year overnight success. These are the artists who spent an entire decade, sometimes longer, building their craft in the shadows before the world finally noticed. And when they broke through, it looked effortless. It looked natural. It looked like destiny. But it wasn't luck. It wasn't the algorithm. It wasn't a plant. It was strategy, vision, and an unshakable belief that if they kept building, the moment would come. Tyler, the Creator, Travis Scott, Brent Faiyaz, The Weeknd, Kendrick Lamar. These are the artists who understand something that most people never figure out, the long game. Let's start with Tyler, the Creator, because his journey might be the most transparent example of a mastermind at work. He started with Odd Future back in 2007. That's over 15 years ago at this point. He was making music in his bedroom, uploading it to the internet, building a cult following one fan at a time. Bastard and Goblin were raw, unfiltered, chaotic projects that got him attention for being controversial. He got banned from countries, he got protested, he got criticized, but through all of that, he was learning, evolving, refining his sound. By the time Flower Boy dropped in 2017, he He'd completely transformed as an artist, and when Igor won a Grammy in 2020, people acted like it came out of nowhere. It didn't. It was the result of over a decade of consistent work, creative risks, and artistic growth. Tyler didn't blow up overnight. He built an empire brick by brick. Travis Scott's story follows a similar path. He was making beats in Houston as a teenager, producing for local artists, figuring out his sound. He linked up with T.I. and Kanye. I could go into more detail about that, but that's a whole other video. He started dropping mixtapes, Owl, Pharaoh, days before Rodeo. He was building his aesthetic, the auto-tune, the psychedelic production, the rage energy. Rodeo in 2015 was his first real statement, but even then, he wasn't a superstar yet. It wasn't until Astroworld in 2018 that he reached that upper echelon. And when Astroworld dropped, people called it an overnight phenomenon, but it wasn't. It was the culmination of nearly 10 years of vision, strategy, and relentless work. Travis knew exactly what he was building toward.
Don't you open up that window. Don't you let.
And when the moment came, he was ready. Brent Faiyaz is one of the best current examples of a slow-building mastermind. He was releasing music independently for years before most people ever heard his name. AM Paradox dropped in 2016. Nobody outside of a small internet community cared. He formed Sonder. He kept releasing projects. He kept building his sound. Moody R&B, raw lyrics, cinematic production. He knew exactly what lane he was carving out. Then he gets featured to do the hook for Crew, then Gravity hit, then Dead Man Walking. Then suddenly he's the internet's favorite R&B artist. But that didn't happen by accident. It happened because he spent years perfecting his craft and building a fan base that would stick with him. By the time the mainstream caught on, he already had an empire. The Weeknd might be the ultimate example of a mastermind in modern music. He started uploading anonymous tracks to YouTube in 2010. No face, no name, just music. He built mystique. He built intrigue. People didn't know who he was, and that made them want to know more. Then he dropped the House of Balloons, Thursday, and Echoes of Silence mixtapes in 2011. Those projects were dark, atmospheric, and completely different from anything else in mainstream R&B at the time. Drake co-signed him. Labels started circling, but he didn't rush. He took his time. He built his brand. He controlled his narrative. By the time Blinding Lights broke streaming records years later, he'd been perfecting his sound for over a decade. People saw the success and thought it was sudden, but it was anything but. The Weeknd knew exactly who he was and exactly how to build toward global domination. And then there's Kendrick Lamar. He was K-Dot in the early 2000s, grinding in Compton, dropping local mixtapes that almost nobody outside of California heard. He signed with TDE. He kept working, kept sharpening his pen. Section .80 dropped in 2011. It was great, but it wasn't mainstream. Then Good Kid, Mad City came in 2012 and changed everything. But that album didn't come out of nowhere. It was the product of over 10 years of writing, recording, and living. By the time Damn won a Pulitzer Prize and he became one of the most respected artists in the world, he'd already logged 15 plus years of work. Kendrick is the definition of a mastermind. Every move is calculated. Every project is intentional. And when people see him at the top, they forget about all the years he spent climbing in silence. Level 7 artists all share the same traits. They're patient, they're strategic, they build fan bases instead of chasing virality. They refine their sound over years, not months. They control their narrative. And most importantly, they understand that real success isn't about going viral. It's about building something that lasts. So when their moment finally comes, when the world finally pays attention, they don't fumble it. Because they've been preparing for it the entire time. That's the difference between an overnight success and a mastermind. One gets lucky, the other makes their own luck. So there you have it, the 7 levels of overnight success. From random viral accidents to carefully orchestrated decade-long plans. The truth is, overnight success is almost always an illusion. Either you weren't paying attention or the artist was working in silence. And the internet loves to argue about which one it was. But the real question isn't how fast someone blew up, it's whether they can stay. Because going viral is easy, staying relevant is the hard part. If this video helped you decode the matrix of music fame, hit subscribe. It helps more than any algorithm ever will. And if you've made it this far, you're already deeper into music analysis than most casual fans will ever get. So welcome to the club. Stop player hating.